This video from Required Systems will take you through the Compliance Declaration Audit tool for domiciliary care services. My name is Gordon and I'll be taking you through this video tour. This software has been developed with health and social care experts, domiciliary care managers and experienced care sector inspectors and auditors to allow domiciliary care service owners, operators and managers to demonstrate how their service meets the requirements of the Health and Social Care Act. Once you've purchased the software from the Required Systems website and installed it on your computer, this is the screen you'll see when you first open up the software. Depending on which version of the software you have bought, you will either have the software for a single audit or for multiple audits. If you have bought the version for multiple audits, you'll have the New and Open buttons in the top corner of the screen here. This is called the Home screen of the software, and it's accessed at any time by clicking on the Home tab here. If we click on the CQC Outcomes and Audit Tool tab, the screen splits into two parts. On the left, we have the 28 CQC outcomes listed in order. On the right, we have a grid where we can enter information to show our evidence for demonstrating compliance with the CQC outcomes. As we select different outcomes, you'll notice the information in the grid changes with the outcome. The columns in the grid are labelled the compliance requirement, the evidence to show the compliance, further actions required, by whom, a target date, and whether or not it has been completed. But before we start using this, the first thing we have to do is to enter the details of the service which is being audited. And we do that by clicking on the Company Details tab here. In here we can enter information about the service provider, their address, postcode, including the audit date. The audit I'm doing, I'm going to call it the Kilbride service, so I'll type that in here. I won't bother filling in the other information just now. This button here allows us to set the target date for all entries to be completed to the same as an audit date. We can do this automatically by clicking on this button, in which case every requirement will have the target date set to the same date as the audit date, or we can do this manually when we're working through the grid. I'm going to tick on this button now. I'll confirm that I want to do that, and finally I just save this information. Now if I go back to my CQC Outcome tab, the first thing you'll notice is that all of the grid has turned amber. To explain the colour coding, if we have a look at the top of the screen here, there are 4 different colours used to show the status of each of the compliance requirements. If it's white, it means we haven't done anything with that one yet. If it's amber, it means that we are still within date, that we haven't reached the target date yet, but we haven't completed the evidence requirements to show compliance. If it's red, it means it's time expired, and time expired means that we've gone beyond the target date without managing to complete the evidence requirement. If it's green, it means that everything is fine for that requirement and it's been completed, the evidence has been collected and it's been ticked off as completed. Before we go on to complete this grid, let's just have a look back at something on the Home tab. You'll notice here there's a button which says Important Information. If we click on there, we get a document displayed that gives us help on how to complete this Compliance Declaration Audit tool. I suggest you read this and make reference to it when you're filling in your audit tool. Clicking back takes us back to the home page. So let's have a look then at the CQC Outcome and Audit Tool tab. Let's look at this first requirement here. Let's say that for this particular service the statement of purpose is out of date. So I want to edit this and put in an action which is to review the statement of purpose. All I do is click in this cell here and start typing. So okay, and I type into that cell in exactly the same way as you type into any editor or word processor. All the usual features of deleting and adding and copying and pasting work. The only slight difference is that if you hit the Enter key, you don't go onto a new line in that cell, it will take you onto the next cell ready to enter data in there. If you wish to move down a line within a cell, what you do is take a note of the tip up here, and that is you hold down the Shift key and press Enter. and that allows you to move down without moving out of the cell. We can start typing again here, and that's how we can enter more information on separate lines. Going back to our first action, we've put in that the action was the statement of purpose needs review. By clicking in here, we can say whose responsibility that is, so I'll just put in here the manager. Our target date for this is the 31st of the 3rd, which is in the future, so this is amber, so we've still got that action to complete by the end of the month. We can now move on and work our way through the rest of these, filling in the actions required, by whom, and if necessary changing the target dates. Clicking on another outcome will prompt you to save the work you've done in the current outcome, so we'll just say yes, we'll save that. If you want to save it as you go along, you can click on the save icon here and that will save it each time you type something in. Let's say we're sometime in the future now and our statement of purpose has been reviewed and we've completed that action. What we do now is we go in here and we tick on the completed button and click on save. As soon as we do that, that particular requirement becomes green to show that we are fully compliant for that particular compliance requirement. If there is no action required at all, we can simply just tick the requirements that are up to date and it will show them as green. So when do we see the red colour appearing? Well, that is if we've passed the target date and the requirements haven't been met and the actions haven't been done. So if I take the tick off from here and save it, it goes back to amber. But let's now go in and change the target date to a date prior to today. Now today is the 2nd of March, so I'll just go back and set it to the 27th of February. As soon as I save that now, this will turn red to show that we are beyond the target date and we haven't completed the action that's been required. Let's have a quick look at one of the other useful features of this software, and that's the search and replace facility here. This allows us to search through any of the compliance requirements or the evidence, looking for a word or phrase and replacing it with another word or phrase automatically. Okay, let's have a look now at the Outstanding Tasks tab. In here you have 3 views of the grids. The first one, which is ticked by default, shows all of the outcomes and requirements which are still in date, and these are the ones that are amber. And if we scroll down there, you'll see that these are all the ones which are still to be completed, but there is time to do it. If we click on the time expired button, you'll get a list of all of the outcomes and requirements where there's action required, but we've gone beyond the target date and we still haven't completed the required action. Incomplete simply means that it could be that the action hasn't been entered, by whom, and it hasn't been ticked complete. So this shows us any of the requirements which are incomplete. You'll notice in this end column here there's an edit date column, and that's useful because it means you can look back and see the last time you edited that particular requirement. Going back to the CQC Outcome and Audit Tool grid, you'll notice that there's a print button on here, and if I click on the print button now, I'm given the option of printing in colour, that's showing the red, amber and green, or just printing in black and white. So I think we'll just go for a black and white print. We'll say no to that. And when we do that, we get a printer-friendly version of the audit tool appears on screen. You can select whichever pages you want to print, or you can print the whole thing out. If you look at the part 2 video in this series, there's more information about how you can use the reporting tool to drill down on information on the audit tool. Going back to the home screen here, one of the things I said at the start was there are 2 versions of this software. One version allows you to perform a single audit on a service, and the other version allows you to have multiple audits. I'm going to show you now how to create a second audit. At the moment, the audit we're running is a Kilbride audit. I want to create a new audit, so I click on New. I give it a name, so let's call it Jackton. And we can browse to save this wherever we want. I'm just saving it in a folder on my documents, and I save that. And as soon as I do that, a new blank audit grid appears. Everything is white because everything is incomplete, and we're ready to start filling in the evidence requirements and the dates and so on for this audit. Going back to the home page, you'll notice now it tells us which document we're working on. We're working on the Jackton audit. If I want to go back and work on the Kilbride audit, I open here, click on Kilbride, open, and it brings us immediately back to the audit for the Kilbride service. So that's the Required Systems Compliance Declaration Audit tool for domiciliary care services. It's a way for you to demonstrate compliance with the CQC Outcomes. You can set target dates, you can put in actions required, you can say by whom, and you can keep up to date by ticking off when these actions have been completed. There's a print facility to allow you to create printed output, which you can store for evidence for inspection. I hope you found this video useful. If you have a look at the second video, it will go into much more detail about using the reporting tools with the audit tool.